प्रसार भारती अभिलेखागार की प्रस्तुति सदाबहार सुनहरे दौर का अनमोल खजाना।
Hello. 2 decades after the achievement of Indian independence, after seeing the great success of new wave movements in France, Italy, and the East European countries, young Indian filmmakers were really getting restless. Committed as it is to the tenets of socialism, intellectuals all over India were really concerned about the degradation of the quality of Indian mainstream cinema. Just in the same way that economists were bothered about the way the feudal grip on the Indian economy was held so strongly, or technocrats were concerned about the way India was lagging behind so much in the industrial scene of the world. So, in the same way that a policy was necessary to rectify the agriculture and the industrial conditions of India, similarly, a policy was also found necessary to rectify the deteriorating quality of Indian cinema.
And the government intervention really started in 1952. And that intervention was because it was felt officially by independent India that the kind of films that we were making was, the quality of these films, the representation of the country, the culture of these films were seriously not representative of the country, that sort of thing. So I think their intervention started, and therefore the Film Institute was started, and therefore you had film graduates from the institute, and they started to make different kinds of films, and other filmmakers and so on, and we developed with the film festivals and so on, we developed what is popularly known as the parallel cinema.
Following close on the heels of the various progressive movements all over the world, the Indian film scene was not to be left behind. The government of India set up the Film and TV Institute of India at the old Prabhat Studio complex in Pune, where the great Indian cinema movement really began. A few blocks away, the government also set up the National Film Archive of India to house the priceless collections of films from India and from abroad. And to ensure a steady streamline of production, they also set up the Film Finance Corporation to subsidize and produce with the sole objective of making good films in 1961. But the most interesting phenomenon was the film that triggered the whole new wave movement. It was peculiarly a comedy film and made by Mrinal Sen. The film was called Bhuvan Shome. Bhuvan Shome was indeed an unusual way to start a new wave. Mrinal Sen, not generally reputed for comedy films, brings together a unique combination of social criticism and a realistic insight into the villages of India. The film narrates the changing attitude of a stiff government bureaucrat when he encounters an innocent yet self-assured village girl in the Rann of Kutch. The bureaucrat, who is used to being treated like a Bada Sahib, has to learn how to survive in the desert. He has to learn the importance of being humble, and he learns the beauty of being simple, thinking noble, and acting gentle.
इस पंखी का क्या करूं?
आप इसे पाल सकते हैं, शेनी की तरह।
तुम इसे रख लो। तुम इसकी अच्छी तरह देखभाल कर सकोगी।
मगर आपने इतनी मुश्किल से पकड़ा है इसे, आप ही रखिए ना।
तुम्हें पंखियों से बहुत प्यार है ना? तुम इसे पाल लो।
आपने सचमुच दे दिया मुझे?
हाँ, तुम्हारी शेनी के साथ इसकी खूब पिटेगी। और फिर तुमसे ये डरेगा नहीं। मुझसे तो सभी डरते हैं। चलो।
Bhuvan Shome will always remain a refreshing experience in the new wave spectrum, although it offers no solutions on how to finally tackle the bureaucracy of India.
You can't expect the solutions because we are no ministers. We can't propound solutions which are full of lies. So all that you can do, you can create problems for the audiences who are also the members of the society as much as the film director is. So that is what it is. The point is to react. You make a film, that is also an outcome of your reactions to social things around you, and then you make your audience react. So that is also very important. That is the sole business of cinema, that is the sole business of all art forms.
By the late 60s, things slowly crystallized, and the movement that had been begun by the masters like Guru Dutt and Bimal Roy finally found its roots. And of course, there was the great Indian powerhouse, Satyajit Ray, who kept making great films one after another and a major impact on the international scene all over the world.
Start from tomorrow. তবে একটা কথা, টের যেন না পায়, তাহলে একবারে মেকে বসবে, শেলের মধ্যে ঢুকে যাবে।
এটা কি ট্যাক্স হলো দাদা? আমি নিজে সাহিত্য করবো না তোমার বউকে সাহিত্য করাবো?
দুটোই করবে, তুমি পারবে? I trust you.
Satyajit Ray always considered Charulata as his most accomplished work. In this film, he manages a kind of excellence, a kind of international quality, for it concentrates minutely on details like set decor, costumes, music, and thanks to the brilliant photography by Subrata Mitra, the story of Charu and her deep anguish gets immortalized.
কেন বাবু তুমি কি এমন কাজ করছো? মানুষ ভাবেও তো, কানের কাছে ইশিস করলে ভাবা যায়?
ও মন ভাবলে বলো কি আর হবে?
ও বাবা,
আরে যা আছে কপালে তা ঘটবে কালে কালে।
কি বেশ বাবা?
মন্দ ওঠান একটা পান সাজে তো দেখি।
না সাজবো না।
Watching Charulata, one also realizes the delicate beauty of the various elements falling together in a perfect balance, which constitutes anything that can be called good cinema.
কি চটি?
বউ। কোথায় যাওয়া হয়েছিল?
কার্তিকের দোকানে একটা খাতা কিনে নিয়ে এলাম।
তাতে এত কাহিল?
You know, the problem is the concept of time. The concept of time in India or in Asia, especially in India, is so different from the concept of time of Europe or USA that a person who is keeping that concept of mind in his mind, it's very difficult to get the pace of this film.
The New Wave movement finally resolved a few factors. Firstly, to nurture a good cinema movement, it was found necessary to disentangle the film director from the financial burdens and aspects of filmmaking. Secondly, the film should carry a good message, a good style, and preferably work within a realistic mold, eschewing all gratuitous sex and violence. And finally, the filmmaker must be bold enough to make strong social criticisms despite risks from castes or political vested interests. And the filmmaker who inspired most of the younger generation directors was an artist called Ritwik Kumar Ghatak. His film Megha Dakatara showed how powerfully one could combine formal elements of film construction into a traditional melodramatic mold. Ghatak uses songs, exaggerated performances, and stylized dialogue delivery to create a virtual powerhouse of emotions. Ghatak also probes the reality of conventions and mythical illusions that constantly prevail in our psyche. The anguish of the main actress Neeta is raised above the mundane emotional level and assigned an iconic position, a site from where Ghatak could boldly critique the position of women in Indian society. During his brief association with the Film Institute in Pune in the mid-60s, Ghatak managed to inspire every thinking student in the campus into a highly individualized process of creativity. The FTII also taught students to think global, to produce and market films on an international scale in festivals all over the world. For Mani Kaul, the director of Uski Roti, thinking global also meant to integrate some of the stylistics and formal disciplines which was current on the international film front then into his body of works. Highly inspired by Robert Bresson, Mani Kaul explored new areas in the construction of a narrative, abandoning all conventions of acting and dramatic editing. In the way he constructs his lensing pattern, structures the editing rhythm, and determines the tonal feel, Mani Kaul creates a new vision of an inner reality.
सुच्चा से रोटी ले ले।
हट जा।
सुच्चा से 1 मिनट नीचे उतर कर मेरी बात सुन ले। एक खास वजह हो गई थी आज। नहीं
बस
तो
नहीं, हट जा यहाँ से।
Later, with his colorful Duvida, which looks like a light-hearted version of Uski Roti, apparently at the surface level, it is the story of the waiting wife. But Mani probes much deeper than that. He forces the viewer to shift his gaze and referential parameters to the formal discipline that he imposes on the work.
I had realized in France that there were great things about Europe and there were great things about our cultures here in India, and that there were some mismatches between the two, and there was this history of colonization from Europe, which in a sense was present in the lens itself, present in the film medium itself, you know. And I still find that in the technologies, there is some colonization taking place. So it was a decolonizing act. That much I know, emotionally and with my whole body and mind. That is what was a propelling impulse. So I even rejected in it, I think, the solutions offered by the radical movements of the West. I was involved with those radical movements. I was there very much on the streets of Paris in May '68.
With his second film, Tarang, Kumar Shahani continues to critique the vestiges of a peculiar kind of urban feudalism that seems to throttle a nation's emotional response. The two women in the film, belonging to distinctly different class groups, encounter a commonality in experience with a highly unfriendly, male-dominated society.
ये क्या बाम लगा दी? मेरा तो सिर फटा जा रहा है। मैंने शाम को दिनेश की चिट्ठी पढ़ी है।
But are their reactions going to be the same? Tarang does not give any solution, but lets the viewer contemplate on this continuing cycle of injustice, occurring like ripples on a pond.
राहुल, तुम्हें उस पर, मुझ पर, हमारे परिवार पर कोई भरोसा नहीं।
I don't think also that Mayadarpan and Tarang later were nationalistic acts. A lot of people have said that, you know, I've probably played with a national allegory after that term has become important in cultural studies. But I don't think that they acted as nationalistic, but certainly as decolonizing and defeudalizing, you know, which were self-critiques, because I I am part of a feudal culture.
With his maiden venture, Shyam Benegal tries to look at the grammar of a Satyajit Ray film in a more dramatic manner. What distinguishes Benegal's work is the great emphasis that he places on individual performances.
उसको बोलूं सरकार क्या लेके आओ बोलूं कचरा
ओहो ठहर चिट्ठी देता हूं मैं लिख के
This is the only country in the world where even without any kind of safeguard, the popular Indian films continue to rule the market. And therefore I feel that there is something in it. And once you start to study, you find that if you start to look at the subtexts of popular Indian films, you start to realize how close they are actually to the cultural needs of the people also in many ways, on a very popular, on perhaps often a very populist level, but they appear to have a great deal to offer to our people by way of even, you know, apart from entertainment and so on and so forth, they appear to keep us in some ways in line with our cultural moorings.
The financial viability of these films was always a growing concern for people in various circles. Heated discussions would take place amidst bureaucrats, press circles, and other fellow artists. Could filmmakers spend so much money just to look at their own likes and dislikes? When the government spends so much money on these films, shouldn't filmmakers be a little more responsible? Can directors indulge themselves with their own new stories just for the sake of winning a few international awards? These were the questions that had very little by way of an answer. But facing them was considered to be as important.
देर से क्यों आई? तुमको छोड़ने कौन आया था?
ऊपर से देखा नहीं था क्या?
In this film by Shyam Benegal, the distraught family of a film actress Hansa Wadkar almost becomes a site from where such problems of expressive artists could be viewed.
डायलॉग बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है.
Was it wrong to pursue this profession? Was it unethical to make money? Is it wrong to sacrifice the family in the pursuit of an art form like cinema?
तुम हमेशा यही समझती रही कमाई तुम्हारी. एक्ट्रेस बनने में मदद मैंने की, तुम्हारा करियर संभाला मैंने. बाप के मर जाने के बाद तुम्हारी आई आजी भूखों मर जाते सब लोग. मैंने रोटी दी है उस वक्त, मैंने.
अच्छा, अब भी रोटी आप ही दे रहे.
In fact, what we have really lacked and all along has been a chain of small cinemas where you could show even the most offbeat films to an appreciative audience. Whereas we make different kinds of films in this country, every cinema is constructed for only the blockbusters. So this concept has to change. I think that is where we have been lacking. Once some enterprising individual, now I don't look up to the government for it anymore, some individual entrepreneur who would find this very lucrative, he would start setting up multiplexes where you have 5 or 6 cinemas in the same campus, and you will have new releases, blockbusters, small films, old classics, important works done in the past. Now all those films will find a place depending on the audience taste.
Happily, some filmmakers did find a way of making their money back from these films. And it was this very factor that prompted small financiers all over the world to put little money into this new kind of cinema. And one such example is Kundan Shah's जाने भी दो यारो.
तेरे को आगे बैठा लेता लेकिन पीछे स्टीयरिंग संभालने वाला कोई होना चाहिए ना. डोंट माइंड. देखना ध्यान रखना, रस्सी टूट जाए तो हॉर्न दे देना, नहीं तो मेरे को पता नहीं चलेगा. राइट.
जाने भी दो यारो gives an impression of a loosely structured, highly improvised kind of film. But through all its slapstick, the film manages to hit out real strong at the establishment. However, on the flip side, this film was never taken as a trendsetter and remained one of its kind.
अब तुम ये सेंसेशनल खबर जल्द से जल्द
हाँ विनोद डार्लिंग, मैं छाप दूंगी। अब तुम मुझे ये बताओ कि लाश कहाँ है?
लाश
लाश हमने बहुत संभाल के रखी है, छुपा के रखी है।
हाँ, छुपा के रखी।
और देखो, इस बात की किसी को भनक नहीं लगनी चाहिए, खास तौर पे तनेजा को। अच्छा, अब तुम जाओ, सब मुझ पर छोड़ दो, मैं सब ठीक कर दूंगी। जाओ।
But the biggest surprise of this new wave package was the sudden spurt in the growth of the regional Indian cinema. The contribution of the so-called vernacular languages of India. But was it really out of the blue? Were these films really so sensational? Was this cinema really so original? To answer these questions, we'll wait for the next episode of Frame to Frame. Till then, goodbye.